Hey there everybody, what's up? Kevin here from the My Song of the Day Rock 2000 Day YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be reviewing the 6th studio album from a band who many fans have varying opinions on. This is our review of Like a House on Fire by Asking Alexandria. So now let's go into a little bit of a background so we're all kind of caught up and on the same page with Asking Alexandria. Danny Warsnop returned in 2017 for their self-titled album, which was their 5th overall, and after it was released, it had varying opinions where diehard fans of the first 2 albums lamented this album for its more melodic style, and more moderate fans of the band really kind of got behind it because it did have a more melodic style to it, a little bit more of a rock tendency to it, so this one got a lot of mixed reviews from people. Myself, I had varying opinions on their self-titled album, and their 2 most popular songs on it really kind of exemplify why. Take a look at Alone in a Room, where it's much softer, much more melodic. The verses are much more centered around like a pop electronic kind of tendency that's very low and down. And while I do think it works for the song, it just doesn't hit me as well with that more melodic sense. But then when you take a look at a song like Into the Fire, it is a little bit more hard rockish, but it has those classic metalcore tropes in it that Asking Alexandria did on their first couple of releases. And it felt like it was something that was a lot more my speed, where it was harder, but it wasn't as fast and as rapid and as raw as that metalcore sound they did in the past. So let's go into Like a House on Fire, a little bit of the background on that. It was announced on March 4th, 2020, alongside the release of the single Anti-Socialist, and if it wasn't for the coronavirus going on right now, they would be on tour with bands like Falling in Reverse and Wage War. I read a Kerrang article that guitarist Ben Bruce did talking about the themes of the album and what the album was about, and it's all about self-love and self-belief, that there is light to the end of the tunnel and that you can kind of get past whatever you want. Ben Bruce also went into the stylings of the album and said that the band was not really resonating as well with that harder, more violent sound they had in the past, because they didn't want to have that feeling where they're going to create shows where there are going to be ambulances lined up at the venues. They wanted to create something that more people could get into and could create more rock fans in general. So they said they were ditching the darker and more violent tones on the album for a lighter, more inspirational message and more of a, I'm going to say it again, inspired sound. So we'll see how that turns out on the album, but let's get into the meat and potatoes of it. So taking a look at the composition, construction, and instrumentations of songs on Like a House on Fire, the band did state that they were ditching a lot of the darker, more violent tones to go with something more lighter, more hopeful, and with more inspirational life lessons. And was this achieved in this album? My answer to that is yes, they definitely did achieve it, because if you take a look at some of the songs like The Violence and One Turns to None, which I think are more the harder songs on this album, they really go away from that more violent, more primal metalcore style, and they try and go with more of a melodic rock style. It's a little bit more accessible to fans that really gets in with some of those alt-rock stylings and pop rock influences as well. But was it worth it in the end? And when it comes to the composition, construction, and instrumentation on these songs, yeah, I don't think it was worth it, and let me explain why. This is based on the fact that with those pop rock influences and those alt-rock influences, that Asking Alexandria focusing on this album to bring that lighter, more hopeful, more inspirational tone to their music against the violent and darker stylings of their previous music, they really went with something that was a lot more monotonous. And really, let me explain on this. When you start out with almost every single song where the verses, they start out with the most minimalistic instrumentation possible, and Danny Warsnop singing, which we'll get into a little bit. When it starts out a lot lower, what happens is it kind of starts out all the same. A lot of the songs start out that way, and then as the verse goes on, you start adding a little bit more of the instrumentation in there. Maybe the drums kick in a little bit more, maybe the guitar kicks in a little bit more. And what that's meant to do is consistently build anticipation, and it makes something along the line seem a little bit harder in contrast. When you get to the pre-chorus, though, the pre-chorus goes, again, total minimal instrumentation, so it really blanks that out. Then you get to the chorus, and it comes in with the full instrumentation style of more of an alt-rock and pop-rock kind of sound. Now, it does sound harder in comparison to the softer points of it, but why this really kind of made me feel a monotonous feel to it is because almost every single song had this style of construction. As I was going through this album, trying to do my review, going song by song, I got to about song number 10, even during our Zoom meeting that we had with all of our fans, or the fans that showed up, where we went through this album and had a listening party for it. We got to number 10 and we were kind of like, this is kind of all sounding the same to us. And my thing was, the construction of these songs was almost identical every step of the way. Let's take a look at some examples where this happens, and if you listen to the singles on this album, it really does stand out tall. Let's take a look at a song like They Don't Want What We Want and They Don't Care. It starts out with this real super stadium style rock music anthemic feel. However, you go through it and then you get to the first verse and it dips down to the minimal instrumentation to build up to really get to that stadium rock kind of feel. You go to a song like Anti-Socialist and it does the same thing with more of an alt rock sound. You look at a song like The Violence and it does the same thing, so that when you get to the chorus and Danny's doing a little bit more of a rougher style vocal, it sounds a lot harder overall in comparison when it's not necessarily as hard or as raw or as primal as they've done in the past. While that's not necessarily a bad thing that they've gone a little bit more on that softer, more lighter trope, my big issue is the monotony behind almost every single song with the construction just stands out like a sore thumb. So now let's go into the vocal performance from Danny Worsnop on this album. When Ben Bruce said that this album was going to be something, again, that was a little bit less dark, less violent, taking those out of there, go with more of a hopeful, inspirational, and lighter sound, yeah, you could expect Danny Worsnop's vocals to follow suit. So gone are the metalcore unclean screams and unclean vocals, and you're really focused on more clean vocals. And if they're going to be a little bit, rougher, they're still going to be clean, but they're going to be more scratchy in the end. So let's get into it a little bit more. So does this work out for Danny Worsnop and the rest of the band to go with that cleaner, more lighter style along with the instrumentation? And my thought process was most of the time, not really. And the reason behind that is because along with the instrumentation, along with the constructions being rather monotonous throughout the most part of the album, yeah, this really set up here. And when I thought about it, I'm like, this is kind of like Young the Giant meets Asking Alexandria in terms of the vocal style, and it really just didn't hit me the right way. Taking a look at examples where that style really didn't work out as well, take a look at Anti-Socialist, where it just sounds rather plain and bland. It doesn't really sound like anything special. It sounds like you could kind of go to any sort of like local coffee shop here in some place, some alt rock music, and you're going to hear a style like Anti-Socialist. The song takes some time. It was kind of like a Sammy Hagar meets Danny Worsnop kind of thing, which I will get to a moment where it worked, but in the verses, it had more of this like breathy, real lighter sound, which I thought, this is just not working out as well. And then if you take a look at a song like Give You Up, if you want to really feel like, a monotonous sound was happening on this one, yeah, this is where it hits. So did that style ever work? And sometimes, that lighter style, it did. Going back to Take Some Time, when you had that hipster Sammy Hagar feel from Danny Worsnop's vocals on this one, it did work because it brought a little bit more of that roughness to a little bit more of a raw energy to it that has been lacking throughout most of the album. And again, I do like the harder stuff, and most times I'm not really in tune to the lighter stuff. However, on this one, a little bit more of that gruffer style on a much lighter vocal style, it did work. Then take a look at a song like They Don't Want What We Want and They Don't Care. And when you hear Danny's vocals, they have a little bit more energy behind them, perfect for that stadium anthemic rock feel that this song provides. So did he work well on this one? Yeah, on that song specifically, the vocals were done the way they should have been. So I'll take a look at the themes in the song styles on Like a House on Fire. As I said earlier, guitarist Ben Bruce was talking about this album and how a lot of the themes are about self-love, self-belief, and that if you're having a problem, there is a light at the end of the tunnel and it's gonna be okay. So a lot lighter, more inspirational kind of sound. And they drew a lot of this from their time as a band. So when it came to first forming the band, to first going on the road, going into the United States of America from the UK, everything that happened in between there, Danny's episode in Seattle, Danny leaving the band, them going with a different lead singer, Danny coming back to the band, and where they are today in their lives. So they kind of boil that all into there. But do the stylings work out with the themes of reflection and, self-belief and self-love? That's the question. Yes, at times they did hit on that trope. Take a look at a song like They Don't Want What We Want and They Don't Care, where that song is all about a time when Ben Bruce's teacher told him you shouldn't be going after, your rock star dreams. You should kind of just, play a safe job, get an account. And it's like that anthemic, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to go and follow your vision. I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to keep my dreams going. Yeah, the stadium anthemic feel of it really does work well. And then a song like I Don't Need You, where you're really going with that alt rock feel to really kind of get a feeling that you're remembering in a more reflective tone. It did work on that one. However, do I think they could have gotten these through with more of a harder sound? Absolutely I do. And when you're going with more of that reflective tone to kind of be like, I was down and out at one point, but I was going to come back up. Take a look at the song Break Me Down by Sleeping with Sirens. I mean, Kellen Quinn goes through the whole entire thing of his episode between Gossip and How It Feels to Be Lost, and really puts it out there, and it's got a nice hard sound. It's rapid and it hits hard. But then take a look at, if you're trying to be more hopeful, does a harder sound work out as well at times? Yes, and Skilled's Whisper in the Dark really does play that off well, where it's more of a hard rock sound, but it also has that hopefulness to it. So I think they could have gone harder, but at times I really do think that the themes of the songs and the stylings that they use on them matched up well. Now time for my overall rating of Like a House on Fire by Asking Alexandria, and that is... I'm going to give Like a House on Fire a 2 out of 10. So I'm giving Like a House on Fire a 2 out of 10. Was there something I like about this album? Yes, and I'm going to go through the 2 points. One is the fact that Anti-Socialist is sort of starting to kind of grow on me. Though I really don't like the song, its feeling of get away from me with that lighter feel to kind of like, I don't need you, get away from me, I'm better off on my own kind of thing. It really kind of has me feeling a little bit more of a reflective time to when I was in middle school, getting bullied at times. It's like, just kind of leave me alone, please. I just don't want to be dealt with anything. Just please, just go away. Kind of that feel of it does bring it back up. And one other thing is the fact that the band, you can tell they're in a much better place now in their lives than they were beforehand through this music, because it is later. It does have more of a hopeful tone, and talking with other people as well, seeing their response from it, they're really taking it on that trope. So the fact that they had a sound that they wanted to put out there that really did work out to get that positive message from their own lives out there and is helping other people that like more of that alt rock and pop rock sound, then they achieved it. So it's doing some good. So now let's go to the dislikes. One major thing I disliked about this was the song construction was incredibly monotonous throughout the whole entire thing, where you had an intro that was going to bring you a little bit more, maybe potentially hype you up. Then you got to the first verse and it just dipped down hard with minimal instrumentation to really kind of just take you completely out of it. Then they tried building it up and a little more instrumentation as the verse goes on. The pre-chorus comes, bing, bang, boom, back to minimal instrumentation. Then the chorus comes with a full-on style and, the band being back in full. And the reason why I disliked it is for 2 reasons. And you can hear this on songs like The Violence, Anti-Socialist. You can hear this on House on Fire. You can hear it on many of the deep cuts as well. They're trying to kind of use that lighter sound to start out with in the verse and right before the chorus hits to kind of make it seem like it's a little bit harder when it really wasn't fooling me, and just the monotony behind it really stuck deep with me. Going to the pre-chorus as well, when they did that, it really bugged the hell out of me, because I can tell what they were doing, where it was, you're going to try and use that as a contrast to make the choruses sound harder, but if you're going to keep going and doing it over and over and over and over again, like on the songs I just mentioned, it gets monotonous as hell. And when I got through the review, again, with the review and the Zoom listen party, we got through 10 songs. We were like, can we just kind of skip this? Because it's getting monotonous, and I knew it wasn't going to really change up at that point. So, not really a fan of that. Not really. The other thing I dislike about this album was the total removal of really anything hard from this album from some of their previous works. Now, I know the band wanted to go for that lighter sound, and trust me, I like the harder sound as well. But when you take a look back at their self-titled album with a song like Into the Fire, they still had that hard sound there, but it wasn't as violent as some of their other stuff was, or it wasn't as dangerous as some of their other stuff was as they've described it. And I thought, if they would have went a little bit more in that direction, I thought they could have had something great. Even though this is the sound the band wanted to, and trust me, I'd much rather have the band here with us than, making music they didn't want. Make the music you want. I totally understand it. Myself, though, it just didn't resonate well with me, and I thought it provided a lot more of a monotony to it. You put in 1 or 2 songs that kind of have more of that inside or Into the Fire feel. I think you have a little bit more of a better album, but oh man, just not having any of that in there really and completely removing all of it, it made it sound real stale. Now time for my overall. This was an album that I was worried about going into, especially after what the self-titled album was, especially with a little bit of a transition from some of their other stuff, seeing where they were going to go with it. And after hearing the singles, I was like, oh boy, what is Asking Alexandria doing? Going through this review and going through what they said about it and going through the themes and stylings, I am happy that the band ended up making this album for themselves, because you can tell this is an album that they want to make for themselves. It's the sound they wanted to go with as the place they are in life, and I would much rather have them doing that than making an album that other people are telling them to make because they might end up hating it. Take a look at what happened with Sleeping with Sirens when they came up with Gossip, because that was more of a producers and what the mainstream media may want them to do, but then they went back to How It Feels to Be Lost, that kind of sound they had on there, and ooh man, was it good. Asking Alexandria, I am happy that they're still here, that they're making the music they want. However, that doesn't mean that I have to really like it. I really don't, because of the monotony behind so many of the song structures. It just felt like one long run-on sentence, the same thing going over and over and over again, and I really didn't care for it. And you know what? When it comes to Asking Alexandria, is this an album I'm really going to be referencing a lot when it comes to stuff I want to listen to? No, I'm going to stick to the older stuff. Alright guys, that's it for me. Thank you for watching the album review of Like a House on Fire by Asking Alexandria. If you liked the video, give me a like. If you dislike, give me a dislike. Put your review in the, comments below and we'll talk about it. If you like this YouTube video and you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified. I release videos every single Wednesday, podcast news on Tuesday, and sometimes we release, special ones throughout the week. So you want to be notified on that. So make sure you do that. Get that out of here. Please follow us on social media like Facebook. Anytime anything gets released, the 30-second Song of the Day feature, the YouTube videos, and the podcast episodes, you're going to find on there. Twitter, exact same thing, but it's really easy to talk to us. Instagram is our biggest platform, so you can find all three of those things. Not only that, but one other thing you can do is you can answer questions that we ask there. It's our most popular platform. We have our IGTV series, which are episodes that come out every single Tuesday, a behind the scenes look at what's going on here. And join our Instagram live streams every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central. It's an hour. We can talk music. We had fun. We do a lot of crazy stuff now, so it is a good time. So links in the description below to follow. Let's get those out of here. Talk about the Chord Progression Podcast. It's our very own podcast, and one thing we've been doing a lot of is been interviewing emerging bands in the scene, and we're going all over the world. We have bands from Singapore, from the Netherlands, from Germany, from Belgium, from Italy, from the United States that have all been on the podcast, and these are all the bands that I think, come the end of the 2020s, you're going to be hearing these bands a lot. So it's the perfect place to get to know them, get in with them, and all of a sudden, watch them progress as they get big. So you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. Also, you can watch them right here in the My Song Day Rock 2008 YouTube channel. So link description below for that. Get that out of here. And one thing I want to say is the Song of the Day feature is really where a lot of this comes into play, because, hell, honestly, that's where you can fall in love with songs all over again, fall in love with bands all over again, fall in love with new bands, and our Small Band Saturday feature where you get to hear a smaller band and some of their music, so you can get in on them early as well. So you can hear that on our social media platforms, so make sure you're following them. Want to thank you guys for watching this video. The next week we have our 100th episode spectacular, which I don't know what I'm going to do for that right now, and that's kind of weird. But please stay around for that. I want to thank you guys for watching. This is Kevin from the My Song a Day Rock 2008 YouTube channel, and you guys know I got to end this with a hat flip. I miss, but see ya!